it's hard for us to be vulnerable when we're in a survival state. What I see with men is when they get a little appreciation, even though they might not be doing it right, if they just feel that their partners are appreciating the effort, it starts to downregulate them. They start to relax, which opens them up. Because here's the bottom line: when a guy feels like he's not performing well in his relationship, he's in a stress state, he's in a survival state. So it's going to be real hard for him to be vulnerable.
All right, Owen, I can't wait to have this conversation because there are a lot of men out there, you and I know, who are suffering with their mental health, even their physical health, and feeling contracted. And at this point, there's so much conversations going around men's mental health, but it doesn't seem like things are getting better. And I'm wondering to myself, is in your perspective, who's worked with so many men for so many years, from a somatic perspective, what are some of the big reasons why we're not getting better with our mental health?
Just over the natural progression, what we've had develop is that the model for how men are emotional, how we connect to ourselves, how we connect to others, is really sort of been skewed towards more of a feminine model, which is not a bad model, but it's not the intrinsic model for men. And so as men, we do want to connect. We do want to succeed. We don't take on something unless we think we can succeed at it. Like we don't go into a relationship unless we think we can succeed at it. But we're not given the right or the intrinsic tools that we need to be able to succeed emotionally and relationally in all the relationships we have. And then we end up, and maybe others end up, blaming men. And we have a lot of other problems, from the toxic masculinity all the way down the road into the high suicide rates.
What I'm hearing is that we as men don't have necessarily the tools, but that's a function of what? Is it a function of the way that we looked at how we interact with the world, our roles as men? And now generationally, we've come to this point where we don't have those tools? Or is it that we're disconnected from a part of our body? We lost that somatic sense with what it feels like to feel. How did we get here?
I think we got there a lot of ways. I think, yeah, we're certainly disconnected from our body. And as you know very well, that probably is the most effective way to get reconnected to our emotions and to others. We're disconnected from our natural society or relationships, we're disconnected from nature. And so there's a lot of disconnection, but we don't have a lot of opportunities to reconnect. And one of the things that I know you understand, and men sort of intuitively understand, is that it's hard for us to really connect unless we feel emotionally safe. And I know from working with a lot of men, again, they want to connect with their partners, but they don't feel safe. And it's not really a function of their partners or them. It's just that what happens, so for a lot of men, is succeeding emotionally becomes a performance thing. And they start to get performance anxiety because they really try to connect with their partners, and they use maybe a lot of emotional words, but they're not feeling them. And that's the bottom line. Because one of the things I do, I work with a lot of couples. We do couple trainings and retreats, and it's really interesting. I'll sit next to a couple. The guy's really trying to connect to his wife, really trying, and she knows it, but she's getting upset or disconnected. She's not feeling it. She knows it, but she's not feeling it. And I turn and I say, "Hey, Joe, can I help you?" He goes, "Yeah, please help me." And so I say to him, "Look, can I just sort of channel what I think you're feeling?" So I take a second and I just sort of voice what I feel he's feeling. Within about 30 seconds, that woman starts to get tears in her eyes. She starts to relax. His jaw drops because I'm speaking what he can't speak. And he can't speak his feelings because he's not feeling his feelings. And he's not feeling his feelings because he's been trained. It's not his fault. He's been trained. We could get into how, but he's been trained to disconnect from his emotional and somatic experience.
This is what I'm hearing then. That's the block, is that we want to be able to, first of all, some of us will be struggling as men to even put words into what we're feeling. But even the people who want to put words to it are not coming from the felt experience of what's happening. They're just putting words into what they may think is happening. And what I'm probably then now leading me to believe is that when a woman hears this or the partner hears this, is that they're not feeling their partner in their pain. They're sort of just hearing their partner, and that's the big gap.
That's the big gap. I mean, that's, I've been working with somatics for close to 50 years. But what got me to start working with men 30 years ago was I had this beautiful woman as a partner. I'll never forget it. She's sitting on my couch and she was saying, Owen, I don't feel you. And I wasn't arguing. She wasn't upset. And I would just sort of give her reasons why she should feel me. And she'd go, Owen, I just don't feel you. And I'd give her more reasons. And finally, I got smart enough where I go, hell yeah, you don't feel me because I don't feel me. I'm
Mm,
not communicating from my feelings. Now, I realized it then, but I didn't know how to do it, which got me into men's work 30 years ago, was learning how to do that for myself and then helping all these other men. And so we think, because we use these feeling words that our analysis, our judgments, our suggestions, our fixing is us being emotional. But part of the problem is we've never seen other men do it the way that you and I are talking about it. So we haven't had emotionally safe places to learn it. We haven't seen other people do it. We certainly haven't had training in it. And we know that the shortcut to being able to do that is a somatic pathway.
mm. So why then? What happened where we as men only know how to express our feelings by going into our logical wording versus the real felt experiencing of which our partner can finally feel us speaking from a somatic, emotional centric place?
Yeah, I think it's a function of a couple things. I think it's the stress and trauma, which we can dive into, but it's also the cultural training. And we've been trained, particularly as men, and we certainly happens for women, to be performance oriented. When we went into an industrial revolution, they wanted us to be good factory workers. And they created a school system where they put us in straight roles. We sit in these chairs for 8 hours a day, and we're taught to perform according to the model of what good performance is. And now we're seeing all these young men or boys with all this hyperactivity, HAD.
ADHD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, I had that along with other things, because and particularly as men or boys, we're not meant to be still, but we train ourselves to think. So we develop this sort of top down orientation to life, and we're reinforced for it. At least in terms of performing well, making good money, but it does not work in relationships, and we haven't ever had a model and let alone training of how do we sort of let go of that in relationships and come back to a more natural way of relating to someone.
Mm. Okay, so this comes from when we were kids then. We really learn how to be top down, as you said, logical thinking, and we've applied that into our relationships. What would it take for then a man to begin to communicate effectively with his partner?
Essentially, what it takes is him to feel what he's feeling. So it doesn't mean he's not having a response. And this is where we work with men. Is we'll get like one example is we'll get a new guy in a group, and there'll be maybe 10 guys in a group, and this new fellow Sam is speaking, and everyone in the room knows he's sort of getting angry. His jaw's getting tight, his voice is changing. He's clenching his fist, and we go, hey Joe, what are you feeling? Oh, I'm not feeling anything. Okay. And then we will sort of say, what do what's happening with your hands? What's happening with this part of your body? And after a few minutes, he starts feeling his body. And either he says on his own, or we ask him, what do you feel emotionally? And he goes, yeah, I'm angry. But we've been trained to be so disconnected from what our bodies are experiencing that everyone else is picking up on, like these guys in the group. We're trained, we're hardwired to read everyone else's nonverbal signals, their unconscious or emotional signals. We are trained to do that. It's in our physiology. It gets into the whole polyvagal theory. So our partners are reading that, but we're not reading it. We might be reading her or him getting upset, which adds more stress to us, which only puts us more in our survival strategy, which is usually one of freezing or disconnection.
It's a sort of like a cyclic loop. We want to be able to meet our partners and what they want from us. I want you to express more emotion. I want you to not be afraid. I'm a safe space to express that. But again, what you're saying is we're coming from this logical space that we can't feel what we're feeling, but it's very obvious to our partners because we're hardwired, like you said. They're sensing that, but we're having the stress of we can't necessarily feel what we want to feel, so we're not able to express it fully. I mean, I've seen that before. The guy goes, I don't feel mad. I feel pretty good actually. The whole body's tense, the jaw's clenching, right? They're the last person in the room to know that they're mad. And it just, I have so much compassion for men because this bridge that we're missing is such a cause for so much mental health and physical health issues. And it's tough, I guess, for the women listening then. How can they most support their partner in bridging this process of having the felt experiencing of emotions instead of just logically speaking them?
Well, I think first, sort of like we were inferring before, just understanding that men, even when they're doing it well, are going to do it a little differently than a woman's going to do it. So having that context helps. But the core of that is to have compassion for the man. And not that women don't, they do. But one of the things that really move men is having the woman compassionately say what the impact of his behavior or lack of behavior is having on her. Because as we know, the guy wants to connect to his partner, but taking it out of the performance thing, like you're doing it wrong, or this is how you need to do it or should do it, to, hey, Joe, I know you're trying. I know you're really trying. I know you love me, but it's really not working. And, you know, and just start to express what the impact is of it not working, not in a negative wouldn't be the right word, but a
Accusatory,
projection
maybe,
or pardon?
like accusing.
Yeah, yeah, in a judgmental way, but just like it really hurts me. You know, I remember who you were when we, fell in love. You were so, and I hear this all the time, so affectionate, so passionate, and you're not now. And and I want to believe it's still there, but I need to feel it. I need to feel it. And I understand, because you're training, maybe your PTSD or whatever, that it's really hard for you to do that. And maybe I'm not the one to get you there. Maybe I can tell you when give me your feedback, like, yeah, yeah, more of that, not that, but more of this. But I'm probably not the one to teach you, in part because I'm not a man.
With the new year beginning, I've been thinking about truly leveling up my health game, especially when it comes to supplement quality. And there's one company that's really impressed me, that is Puori, their O3 Ultra Pure Fish Oil. And what makes it special is that they use small fish and test every single batch over 200 contaminants. There's something called a Clean Label Project. We're talking about the highest standards for purity, no heavy metals, no pesticides, none of them fishy burps that you get. And these omega-3s are at premium therapeutic levels. The EPA and DHA are at these levels that are going to support your brain, your eyes, your heart. Many supplements do not have enough EPA or DHA, and oftentimes fill up their capsules with other types of oil like sunflower oil. Puori is fully transparent. It's one of the most transparent companies I've ever came across, and I truly mean that. I got a lot of love for Puori. If you're ready to upgrade your supplement game, you get 20% off by visiting puori.com/DRG and use the code DRG at checkout. That is PUORI.com/DRG, and DRG is the code for 20% off. You know what's fascinating? We spend about a third of our lives sleeping, yet so many of us do not think twice about what we're sleeping on. And I've been using the Birch mattress for years. Let's say about 3.5, baby. Wow, 3.5 is a long time, dude. Shout out to Birch, but I was initially blown away. It was comfortable. I know what it was made out of. Super clean mattress. It's the best one out there. And they're free of this really nasty chemical called polyurethane. Those are the foam mattresses that you find, the foam pillows that you find. And those often off-gas fiberglass, which are harmful for your sleep. There's a volatile organic compound. This VOC you breathe in, it disrupts your respiratory system, it causes inflammation in the system over time, and you're not getting a deep, good night's sleep, which is supposed to be restorative. So when you're getting a deep sleep, you're putting out that fire, but you don't want to be exposed to stuff that is causing those microfires every single night. That is why I was drawn to Birch's commitment. They only use organic and natural materials. And what makes Birch different is that they craft their materials with organic cotton, organic wool, 100% natural latex. It's really cool because the wool that they use is in itself a natural flame retardant instead of fiberglass, a natural solution, and it's ethical. Big for me. And as someone who spends time, I can get hot. I do get hot in bed, right? I used to run cold, now I run hot. And it has temperature regulating properties. The organic materials are preventing the growth of mildew, but it's also cooling the body down. Birch is one of the best mattresses out there because it has the most essential labels that you need for a mattress. GOTS and Green Guard Gold certified. That means they're free of the harsh chemicals and pollutants that you're gonna be breathing in for the life of a bed when it's a conventional low quality one. If you're hypoallergenic, mildew resistant, you're gonna create a healthy sleep environment with the Birch. I love everything about it. They have free delivery right to your home and an optional in-home setup and removal of your mattress. Removing mattresses is a headache. If you've done it before, you know what I'm talking about. They even give you a 100-night sleep trial with a 25-year warranty, so you feel good about your investment. So here's an exclusive offer for you, the Heal Thyself listener. You're gonna get 20% off of your mattress purchase plus 2 free EcoRest pillows. Just go to birchliving.com/heal thyself and use the promo code BirchPartner27 at checkout. If you love the podcast and you want to be down with the Dr. G Heal Thyself community, we give incredible tips every single week on getting a healthier physical, mental, and emotional body. The newest updates of my favorite products, the newest updates of my favorite practices. Stay in the loop by joining the Dr. G community. All you got to do is go to any one of my posts on Instagram and comment the word news. You'll get a DM to join. So what I'm hearing is that for the women out there viewing and listening, to be able to express how much this is affecting you, but really, and this is the important thing you said, not that judgmental or accusatory way, but being able to be like, from the heart, here's how it's really affecting me. And I love that you said this, because as a man, I hear that and I go, oh, well, I want to show up for my partner. I want to be able to meet her there. And so let me seek out the ways to best do this. And this is, I believe, the part where we are with men is like, there's an awareness arising where we want to show up better for the people in our lives, not only our wife, but our kids, our friends, our coworkers, and moving into that space where we can actually feel what we feel. What do you think is the biggest misconception that women have about men's capacity for emotion?
That's a good question. I think the meta of that is I think society has really framed men and a men's emotionality in a very limited way. So I think there's a lot of sort of subsets of that, and I see it changing in many ways now. I'm seeing, um, like you're familiar with Richard Reeves, who wrote the book of Boys and Men. It came out a year or two ago, and it's an excellent, thesis or presentation of what men have been struggling in with, and boys too. And one of the things I loved about what he said, and we had him on our program, was that the liberals and the conservatives got it wrong. The conservatives want everyone to go back to the 50s when men were, in charge. And like, do it like how men want to do it. And the liberals, and this is what I see changing, is they have thought in the past anything that you do for a man or a boy is taking it away from a woman. And I think that's starting to shift, that women are starting to see, look, I care about my son, my husband, my brothers, my father, whatever, and it serves me, let alone them, if they get this right. And it's like, rather than, as you said, shaming them or judging them, how can I support them? And one of the
Mm,
things, and I think this is sort of what I was hearing, Christian, from what you were saying, is showing them appreciation for what they are doing and how much they are trying. Because what I see with men is when they get a little appreciation, even though they might not be doing it right, if they just feel that their partners are appreciating the effort, it starts to downregulate them. They start to relax, which opens them up. Because here's the bottom line is, you know this really well, that it's hard for us to be vulnerable when we're in a survival state. We're not hardwired to be vulnerable when we're in survival. And so when a guy feels like he's not performing well in his relationship, he's in a stress state, he's a survival state. So it's going to be real hard for him to be vulnerable.
mm.
So I guess probably the biggest thing is, how do you create vulnerability?
And like facilitate it as a partner, because a lot of us are just super stressed without any connection to our body and not even knowing it, right? Like we have work stress, we have family stress, we have maybe our immediate family, our parents as they get older or something. We have all this stress and it comes into the relationship and we don't know how to work through that stress. So you're saying this vulnerability piece is really essential. I find that a lot of men go, okay, my partner's been wanting for me to be vulnerable. I've been working up to it. right? Silently working up to it. I've been hearing the cues. I've been hearing the what they want, the needs, the desires, and sometimes I'll find that a man finally is vulnerable. He finally is expressing this pain that's inside of him, and it's not held by the partner. Sometimes that's a recipe for contraction and closing up, because if that's vilified or not held in a loving space, that'll close us up, right?
For sure. And this is what I I sort of say to guys, but particularly the women, that again, guys are going to do it differently. Even when they're doing it well, it's going to be different. And you got to realize us men are behind the emotional curve for all the reasons and more that we've mentioned. And so it's a learning thing. They're not suddenly going to go, I want to be successful in a relationship. I want to be vulnerable. Boom, they're going to be there. No, they got all this past that they got to not just heal from in some way, but learn. They got to learn, how to be vulnerable, how to connect to themselves. So it's going to come out a little rough in the beginning.
Mm,
And one of the things I say to women is, you wouldn't be judgmental to your son or even your daughter about, screwing things up. And so, in a compassionate way, understand that your partner is trying and he's going to probably mess up more than he's going to succeed. So maybe don't reinforce the failures, but acknowledge and appreciate the effort. And when he does succeed, and use those as little portals for more vulnerability. Because I'm willing to bet if he does something that's 10% right, and you focus on the 10%, it's going to open up to be 20%, and then it's going to open up more. And you can say, "Hey, Joe, thank you. I felt you then. Yeah, my body relaxed. That's who I fell in love with." And he's going to go, "Really? That's all I have to do?" I mean,
mhm.
and he's going to open up.
Mm. We as men love that positive reinforcement. It's ingrained inside of us because we want to sort of love and protect and serve our family units, right? So it's really important that you said that, is to the women listening, is a matter of like, it's going to come out clunky in the beginning. It has to, because we're unraveling all of this learnings that we've had about how to be a man a long time since we were boys living from our heads. So expecting that it's going to come out clunky without judgment and also positive reinforcement. And that's a beautiful thing about us men. We just need a little positive reinforcement to be like, "Oh, that I'll do more of that and I'll do it well because we want to do well. We want to succeed." So
Exactly. We don't even know what well is until you tell us.
exactly, we need a reference point. Listen, women, women who are viewing and listening, we're giving you the codes here. We're talking to someone who's done men's work for so many years. Me, I'm passionate about this stuff. We love somatics, both of us. We're giving you the codes. This is so important. You want your men to heal. It goes both ways, right? We get providing that loving space for that clunkiness to come, those errors, him tripping over his feet. But know that if he's open hearted and wants to do better for you and the family, he's going to do better. He's going to do better. But that positive reinforcement comes fast. Now, I want to shift the gears to the men's groups. Why is it that men with other men in healing is so damn potent? What is it about men with other men? Is it that we don't get enough of that in our lives? Is it that there's a masculine holding that we can surrender? What is going on in these men's groups that is so magical?
I think all that, but I think the base is that we feel emotionally safe. And I didn't realize that. I didn't know that until I started doing groups. But you put a group of guys, almost any kind of guy, so that, they're not all going to be the same. So different ages, experience, education, but you put them in a group with some simple guidelines or protocol like confidentiality, maybe a little teaching around, if you want to accelerate the process around somatics, and you just get them talking and they open up. And it's amazing how quickly. I mean, I've done training with 60 guys in the room, and we'll, be in a big circle, and we'll do like what we call a check-in. And every guy sort of says his name and answers a simple prompt, like, "Why are you here?" And but I'll preface the whole thing by saying, look, we're changing the rules of engagement here. In this setting, you get reinforced for being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is an act of courage. And so a few guys check in, and one guy sort of finds his courage and says something vulnerable. Well, I'm here because I was molested as a child, and it's really affected my relationship ever since. And and I want to heal it, whatever it might be. So he's revealed something that in the outer world, either it'd be shamed or people would run away from him or whatever. In this setting, naturally, guys show appreciation rather than shame. He gets honored, and someone else, might go, "Me too," or whatever. And by the time we've gone around the whole circle of 60 guys are crying.
Mm.
And guys get competitive. Well, I can outdo Joe. I can be more vulnerable. I'll reveal something bigger.
Yeah.
And, and all it takes is that kind of setting. And initially, it's really hard to do that in a co-ed setting in this culture. Now, I've done work with co-eds, but we don't go as far or as deep as we do when we just put men together.
Wow. I just felt into the energy of what you were saying because in that container, if I was sitting there, I love that we even play into the competitiveness of men because we're inherently wanting to be competitive and be that person. But it's funny because when it's competitive with vulnerability, it's for the betterment of everyone there anyway. So it's incredible. I also feel this sense of like there is that honoring piece that you said. We have an immediate reverence once we get past that competitive, like who's that guy? He's a threat to me, or he's very quote unquote alpha, and I feel small around it. Whatever the ego says. When as soon as you're past that, there's this energy of wow. There's a solidarity and an honoring of men, and it's because I look at the guy in front of me, he knows what we sort of go through in quiet. He knows what we suffer with. There's women have their own huge list of things that society has put on them that they suffer with. But we as men, same. It may be a little different, it looks different, but it's this beautiful coherence of men, and that's what really like excites me in working with men. When a man is finally set to release the deep stuff, not in a circle, not just like, okay, I'm starting to feel into like the vulnerability, but really when they're like going through the deep stuff, is having another man's energy next to them, their space holding, does that allow them to go deeper on some capacity?
I think you nailed it. Yeah, I think that's a secret ingredient. Because what I've learned, not only from studying the science and the people that developed all this, but really from experience, is that we have stressors in our life or traumas in our life, and it's like if it's our normal capacity or the range of tolerance that we talk about, uh, and then we have something that's big, we could still only experience this much. But when we have someone that is able to hold the space, as you might say, which is basically just be there and not shame us, but where their presence, because they're not getting activated or tripping out or leaving or whatever, not in their process, but just or not letting their process take them out, but just being there with us, being a sponsor, being a witness, it tells us psychically from a little kid to an adult, oh, that it's okay to have this full experience. I'm okay. I'm not bad. I'm not this. I'm not that. I will survive if I let my body, let my emotions, let everything in me have this full experience. And be, as we know, because when we can do that, we cycle back out.
Mm,
The experience is complete. Now, we've had a lot of experiences where the space was narrow and the experience was too big. And so what didn't get experienced got disassociated or stuffed in us, all those things that we know. But what happens, as you're describing it, Kristen, is in these settings with men, is that these other guys, maybe one man or a whole circle, is this there, and the guy's picking up subconsciously, non-verbally, that I can be weird, I can cry, I can get upset, I can have these experiences that I couldn't have in the past. I can have them now, which is life changing for some men. And then with some of the particular processes that we do that are uniquely to our work, where it really catalyzes this, they can have the full experience. And with that, create the physiological completion, let alone the emotional completion of that previous experience.
mm.
And that retrains the nervous system and the rest of the body. So the next time they're able to do that on their maybe on their own.
Mm. Again, I'm feeling into that energy and knowing that, like, as a man, there's a sort of unspoken implication that, hopefully, but unspoken implication that most likely this man who's next to me while I'm healing can hold what's about to come out, for the most part. And it's oftentimes true because there's again, an unspoken bond of, like, we know what kind of we go through as men, and I'm here to hold this space and honor this man who's going through this process. It's really, really potent. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the meld retreat that we're going to do together for the men. And I want everyone viewing and listening, if you got a man in your life who needs this healing, this is going to be the best one across the board. We're going to go into it later. But I want to go into the mothers out there. How can mothers raise the emotionally aware, healthy masculine children early on?
Yeah, I think the sort of classical example or suggestion would be give them more healthy male experiences, modeling and all that. But also, sort of like we were saying with their partners, let the boy be a boy. And, we got science is now catching up to what I think we know. Like one of the things that science tells us is boys literally mature slower than girls. So realize, if you got a son and a daughter, chances are he's not going to mature like the daughter is. So understanding all this and basically, yeah, not giving a kid all this freedom, but a range where he can experience, fail, and succeed on his own and get feedback and appreciation for his own experience. And he starts to feel this connection with you as a mother that is more than performance based. And what I mean by that is, as a fellow that I'm sure you know about, Robert Glover, who wrote this book, No More than Mr. Nice Guy. He's a therapist. The book's been out there for a few decades. And his whole thesis is that as boys and then as men, we're trained to be nice. And being nice is we've trained to please people, particularly, our mothers and the feminine. And in itself, it's not a bad thing, but we've been trained not to, sort of discover our boundaries, discover no, just to assert ourselves in a way that is a healthy way. And we've become too nice, which slowly dissolves our masculinity of who we in that masculinity is unique for each man, but we don't have an opportunity to develop that. And for boys particularly, we learn a lot through challenge, and some of that challenge means that we're going to fail, and that generally is harder for a woman to accept than for a man. And in a relationship, the mother's usually the one that wants to protect the child, and the father's usually the one that wants the child to go out there and have challenges and fail. And in a healthy family relationship, there's that natural dynamic and balance.
Hmm. Okay, so letting the boy have their experiences, let them make mistakes, let them test their boundaries, because if they're contracted into being this type of little boy, it's often going to lead to the times where the boy just begins to identify as really nice people pleaser in relationship to the feminine. But in reality, we have this biological imperative to be more of who we are. What about for the dad? Let's say for the dads listening, or the moms who have a partner and they have two young kids. What can we do as men to be better dads to our children?
Be a better man.
Be a better man.
I mean, we get guys and had for decades that come to this work saying that, what's bringing me here is I don't want to be my father with my kids. And I said I never would be, but I'm doing that. I'm being what I don't want to be. And I know that I need help. And the subtler part of that is, yeah, if you really want to show up in this authentic way, which is not just vulnerable, but that's part of it, in a way that your kids can naturally connect with you, and they will if you're available, you need to be available, which gets into sort of what we're talking about, somatics and everything else. And we've had a lot of guys, and I can see it in groups because the groups are over a longer period of time, where the guy will come to the group and they're struggling with their kids. And, after 6 months, maybe a year in the group, the guy really changes. and miraculously, the kids change. Kids, before were misbehaving, yelling at their parents or at least the dad saying, "I don't like you." And I'll never forget one incident. This fellow, and this is many years ago, said in the group, my son that was a year ago the big troublemaker just said unsolicitedly, "I love you, Dad." He had everyone in tears because this kid, we all knew the kid because it's in Sandpoint, Idaho, this town where I started this group. So it's a small town. We knew people. We knew everyone in the group and their families. And the kid had transformed because the man had transformed.
Mm. So this is really important for the men listening. It's not anything that you say. It's the embodiment of who you are that has a new felt experience for the children around you. And that's the thing. Kids are so sensitive that they can feel more than they're going to hear, right? Like we're not going to knock into our kids' heads saying over and over. It's really about what do we embody, and that's the biggest part. And I really really respect that you say that because that's what really changes the family dynamic is we as men if we can embody a higher self. And when we think about that, then what are the qualities of a man who is truly embodied? What is the qualities of a man of be a better man that you say? What does that mean? How do they show up?
It's not necessarily a lot of the things that we're told. It's just sort of in a different way. I mean, we talk about honesty, but in this case, it's being authentic or honest with themselves, and not in a rigid way, but when you're having a conversation, say with your kids or your partner, that you're present, that you're present. And again, it's not about saying everything that's perfect or right, but the other people feel you. And it doesn't mean you never fight or have arguments, but you're more often than not present. And what the research shows with attachment theory, which basically says that we are hardwired for connection as much as we are for survival, that we need connection, that a child will have a successful upbringing if his parents, excuse me, are connected to him 30% of the time, only 30% of the time. And so it's not like, for a parent, we need to be perfect all the time. It's just that, they need anchor moments where they can connect with you. Maybe they're having a big experience and you're just sitting with them, holding space for them, just being there, letting them have the outrage, let them have the upset, let them go through the tantrum or whatever it is, so they can cycle through it, so they know that the full experience is okay, and they're not triggering you in a way that you're checking out or making them wrong to shut them up because you're uncomfortable. And that you're, even if you are a little uncomfortable, you're willing to stay present. And this is a skill, particularly for men, that we're not taught. Being present is not on our priority list of how to succeed as a man.
Presence. One of the biggest things, biggest things our partners look for, the children look for, is you being able to be present with whatever, not just all the nice, beautiful stuff, the sunrises, but all of the mud and the muck and all the stuff that's really can be challenging for us. In You've seen a lot of men at many of these retreats. You work with a lot of them. I'm sure they've shared a lot with you. How potent is a broken relationship with the father in the way that men are wounded? And oftentimes, what is that wound with the dad that is most common that we see in men?
I think the biggest wound, which is probably pretty obvious, is that sense of disconnection. Now, how it shows up is a lot of different ways. I mean, we get a lot of guys that where their fathers were alcoholics. We get guys where, it's a different kind of addiction at work, or maybe they weren't present. But it's all these different ways where they weren't present. And what research shows and experience shows is anytime there's a gap in health, or what's the word, a healthy relationship or whatever as a kid, it's dysfunction in the marriage, the children will make it about themselves. And when we think about it, it makes sense because our parents are a key to our survival on all these different levels. And so we will compromise ourselves to support our parents. And so when a father or a mother is dysfunctioning, you know, we make these contortions that we don't even know we're making, where it ends up being about ourselves, and we compromise and we adjust, and we don't understand that, and that's the least of it, but we take it on ourselves, and then we have in later life, or maybe earlier, all these dysfunctions, and we can't understand why. And so a lot of dysfunctions was our survival strategy and our coping mechanism that might have worked then. I mean, we probably did. We survived, and it might work in certain areas because I get a lot of entrepreneurs as clients and in our trainings that they learn to work hard, which was great for starting a business or running a business, but not the best strategy for their relationships. And so they start to realize that the problem wasn't really with them. It was like growing up, they were deprived of some critical nutrition and they have these dysfunctions because of what they were deprived of and
Mm,
not because of them.
that makes sense. That makes sense. And we as children will always make it about ourselves because we don't know better. And there's so much shame in that. A lot of children go through a lot because of that. And we don't have the tools to rationalize and be like, oh well, actually, maybe my dad's really stressed because his dad, we don't, there's no rationalization. It's just the experience. I must have done something wrong. And for the viewers and listeners, it's really important to know that a child will internalize that energy and create compensations around it. Um, for the people viewing and listening who are really experiencing intimacy issues, do you see that emotional openness, the emotional connection, the better that is, the more deeper the intimacy between partners? And can that be a really major obstacle to deeper intimacy, which I know a lot of people viewing and listening are looking for?
I think it is the block. And again, it's not our fault. It might be our responsibility to change it,
Yeah.
but it's not our fault. It's because of what we've experienced from the family to the culture and our stress and trauma. And yeah, when we fall in love, we're usually very open and intimate, and we got all the hormones and all that going. And as Stara Perel says, yeah, great, but then we want a secure relationship, we want consistency, and we get that, and then we're bored or we're frustrated or all our stuff starts to come up, and it starts hitting our partner stuff, and then what do we do with that? And again, we didn't see anyone, with very few exceptions, we didn't have parents that worked it out or tried to work it out. They didn't have a model that, oh, maybe we need to work it out. They just fought it out or whatever they,
Yeah.
did. And so, saying that, all right, something's going to come up and we need to work through it individually and collectively. And it doesn't mean that either person or even the relationship is wrong. It just means that we've hit a certain level of competency and we need more training. And see, I often see it as an educational thing, not as a therapeutic phenomenon. We need more training to go to a higher level, and we would have that model with anything else, but we don't seem to often use it when it comes to emotions and relationship.
Mm. Yeah, the intimacy thing I know is a major thing that I know a lot of viewers and listeners are suffering with deeper intimacy. They're asking their partner, I want to connect with you more. I want you to open up more. Sexual intimacy, getting deeper and actually feeling that you're having a deep experience versus just having sex. This is major things that I know that you've heard a lot of men speak about what their partners back home are really asking of them. And I love the point that you're saying as we grow into that emotional awareness, being able to feel ourselves more, it creates more depth and capacity to do the things. It's like, I want the women to understand we want to really show up. It's our responsibility to do it. It's not our fault that we've come to this way, but now we're starting to get real tools. Now we're not just talking about things anymore. Now we're beginning to learn how to feel, which is difficult. It took me, it was for my process for a long time. It was difficult, but it's fruitful too. The We're doing a retreat at the end of February, and I'm really excited to do it because it's my proper first real men's retreat. And I love that I partner with you guys because y'all been doing this for years and you've got the system set up. You've worked with so many men. But when we look at men's retreats overall, why is the Meld retreat different? What makes it different? What makes it so effective over the years versus if I Google men's retreats near me?
Well, as you know, men's work, men's coaching, men's retreats, it just skyrocketed in the last few years. It seems like everyone's doing it. And, I've done over the years, not recently others, but um, I think generally, they're a retreat. Guys get to connect. Maybe, some are, more confrontational than others, which we don't do that. Ours is the other way. We make it really safe and comfortable. Um, and so you get some connection, you get some release, I would say, in pretty much all these men's retreats. But what makes ours unique beyond it's based on science is that, as we were at least inferring, that we go right to the source. We go to the somatics of the physiology of stress or trauma, and understanding that, and using that science to create exercises where not only are you having the experience of receiving it, you're actually facilitating other men in having that experience. And so this is just like one page from our 100-page plus manual, which is this what we call melt method, which is what I observed years ago. When there's any significant change for a person, there's a general arc or change that happens. Yes, it's going to vary on the situation, on the person, but there's a general arc or change. And so I just extracted that and created a progression of what we teach. So what we do is, with you're there with we put you with two other guys, you work on one, he works on you, and another one observes, and you rotate around step by step. You go through these stages, and within the course of this long weekend, not only have you had these emotional releases and this deep connection with other guys, but you've learned how to do what is intrinsic in you. You're still hardwired for this these skills, but because we haven't had a chance to see them played out or have them modeled for us or be taught them or have a safe place to learn them, we never got to learn them. But because they're naturalistic, once you experience it and not just learn it in your head, but really learn it in your body, you leave with something that can literally not only change your life, but something, you got a natural roadmap that you can build on. So it's not the retreat is not just a one-off. It's really the beginning of a new journey for most men.
Mm. You said the word change your life. What have people said the men who've gone through this retreat, what have they said has changed them for the long term? Because I know a lot of them reach back out to you and say, hey, it's been 3 months, it's been 6 months, it's been a year. What is the biggest common change that these men are coming back home with?
Well, we've had men literally say that it saved their life, but that's not the most common. But these were like some vets that were, had a huge
Yeah.
amount of trauma. But I think the biggest reason guys come to us and the biggest change that they get is just either transform their relationship at home or put them on a trajectory towards transformation. It's like, all right, I know what I need to do, and I got some skills to go down that path, and I'm going to do that. And if they want it, they got the support of the whole community. So again, they're not doing it alone. And one of the little side things is often we hear is often it's their partners that encouraged them or literally bought the thing for them
Yeah.
to do the retreat. And then 6 months, a year later, the guy is saying to the partner, yeah, I think we need to do couples therapy. We need to
Uh
do more work.
huh.
And the woman's going, what did I create here?
Uh
And it's
huh.
like,
Uh
all
huh.
right, great. So I always sort of tease women, be a little concerned of what you ask for, because some of these guys are going to come back and they're going to really be different. And like we said earlier, there might be some rough edges with that, but they're going to be connected to a part of them that they haven't been connected to, and they're going to need that practice to keep honing that skill. And that's one reason that we support men in groups, because one of the powers of groups is it's a consistent, safe place for guys to learn to practice, to learn from other guys, and really accelerate the growth.
I don't think people understand this perspective. This is a somatic based men's group, men's healing, men's work, men's retreat. This is not the commonality. You mentioned these like confronting cathartic ones. That's very different model of these men's retreats. A lot of us think about men's retreats and we see videos that are very confronting, where you're in the middle of a circle and you're screamed at and you scream and primal energy, great. But it's that's not really what men need right now. Men need more heart and more safety and more actually melting into this space of allowing what's in there to come out. And that's created with proper, safe space holding. And the viewers and listeners, we got to understand that that's the most important thing here when it comes to men's healing. We don't need to confront anymore. We need to just surrender and allow what's to come up. So, when is the retreat? For the people who want to know, when is the retreat? Where is the retreat? And what can we expect for this one in particular? How many men are you having there? Before you go into that, the viewers and listeners, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be helping facilitate. It's going to be so exciting. So, what can we expect?
The retreats in Joshua Tree, well, actually 29 Palms, which is a town where the park is. We're going to go into the park. It's in February, so it's February 27th through March 2nd. Um, and we've used this venue for years. It's a beautiful venue. It's out in the desert. It's literally a oasis, and there's a pool, there's a conference center, and this is one of our smaller retreats. We're not going to have 60 guys there, probably 30 or so. So it's going to be an intimate retreat. The food's delicious, the accommodations are wonderful, and yeah, Christian's going to be there.
Mhm.
We have a whole team of guys that I've trained and been working with us for years. They're going to be there as support. We've been doing these trainings for it's coming on 8 years, and each time we do one, we keep upping it. Uh, as I said, you get a 100-page manual that is really the supplemental teaching to what you're going to be learning, and guys leave with new relationships with guys and really themselves.
And that's what we need. It is. I'll tell you right now. I did this alone. This men's healing stuff by myself. I didn't have many resources. I didn't have much support. It was just me over the years trying to learn what I need to do. If I knew about men's retreats 10 years ago, I knew about this one in particular, who knows what that would have created. But um, for the men out there or for the women listening and their partners, remember what Owen said. A lot of partners come because the women are championing it. And then they go back and they say, okay, we should do a couples thing, or I really love this. And they're coming back as a more embodied man because we're creating that safe space for somatic body-based healing. I'm so excited to be there. So viewers, listeners, that we're going to put on the show notes, but join in. We're going to be there in Joshua Tree. By the way, if you haven't been to Joshua Tree, that in itself is a space for healing. Quiet, connected, you're with yourself. There's magic in Joshua Tree. So, where can we find out more information about you or Meld, Instagram, websites?
Well, our website is meld.community, and the word community is spelled out. And you can find it's right on the homepage, but you can go to the actual retreat, which it's called Prime. So it's meld.community/prime will take you to the page that describes the training. And, you know, I'm more than glad to talk to any man that wants to talk about this, because I understand. Because I remember the first time I went to a men's group. I remember the first time I did a men's training. It's a little scary, and you want to feel like maybe it's a little strange, but at least want to feel these guys aren't too weird. I mean that it's normal guys, and I'll tell you, I mean, thousands of guys, we're all pretty normal. And one of the things that we consistently find is that, we realize, because as you sort of said, we think we're alone. And when we get in these settings, we realize we're pretty much all the same in the sense that we're all struggling. We all feel that we weren't good enough. And then when we start to hear and see other men have similar experiences, that really is a big part of the healing.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. We don't feel alone. We feel seen, heard, the space is open. We can relate to others. So, everyone, go check out the website. You can go on there and learn more about the retreat that we're doing at the end of February. I want to thank you, Owen, for your expertise, your passion in men's work, for how long you've been doing it. relatability, the way that you've really just brought a lot of wisdom to the viewers out there. I think this is really important to understand how to relate to our partners, how to hold space, what we as men can do in the meantime before going to these men's retreats, what we can do for ourselves, and how to be better fathers, better husbands, better sons, all of it. Thank you so much, Owen. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.